lidocaine and B12. That's it.
Never a human growth hormone?
Never.
Never testosterone?
Never.
And never anabolic steroids?
Never.
For the record, have you ever used steroids, human growth hormone, or any other performance-enhancing substance?
No.
The one woman had any reason to feel threatened. Apparently, she said she felt threatened.
She said she felt threatened.
Did you feel like she said anything?
You heard she said this to you?
No, I'm just repeating what has been said that she told the Karen for her.
Oh, well, I've never been in a fight in my whole life. So, I don't know why she would have felt threatened.
You have no idea.
Well, it's not a question of having no idea.
Well, what is your idea, Prime Minister?
What you can say is...
Prime Minister.
Where did you originally get the substance?
That's the right question today. Where did you get it? I'm not sure exactly, what substances I used, but whatever it is, I feel terribly about it.
Did you threaten to overrule him?
I discussed this matter with Derek Lewis. I gave him the benefit of my opinion. I gave him the benefit of my opinion in strong language. But I did not instruct him because I was not entitled to instruct him. I was entitled to express my opinion, and that is what I did.
Whether or not Mr. Bennett knew of your relationship with Ms. Lewinsky, the statement that there was no sex of any kind, in any manner, shape, or form with President Clinton was an utterly false statement. Is that correct?
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is.
Yes.
So could you tell which one was lying? I got a quick question here. How many of you like being lied to in your investigative interviews? As I thought, right? How about this? Let me change it. How many of you would like to go through an investigative interview and go from suspicion to admission, get the truth, and not have to deal with the lies? A bit more that way, yeah? I know that's how I would like to do it. What I'd like to do, my name is Chris Norris. Good afternoon, I'm Chris Norris. I am the Director of Webinar Training, Computer-Based Training, and Managing Partner for the International Training for Wicklander, Zalowski and Associates. And I want to give you a little background on Wicklander, tell you a little bit about who we are. I know that many of you have heard of Wicklander interviewing or the training courses that we've been running here in the UK for the last couple of years. And I think to understand what it is we do and where we come from and how our training is based, it's to give you a little background on what we do. I don't know about the rest of you. I know how I learned, or I know my first interview. In fact, many of you probably learned the way I did, which was just on the job, trial and error. I remember my very first interview. And you know what I was told? She's in the office, go see what you can get. Right? Okay, but what do I do? More importantly, what am I not allowed to do? What am I going to get in trouble for if I'm in that room? I went and, I'd wing it. I'd go get people to talk to me and figure out how to get confessions. I remember one of my very early confessions and early interviews that I had done. Worked hard on an investigation. I had an employee who was, as you guys say, nicking cash from the till. And I get to go do my interview. He had said, you worked hard, I'll give you the opportunity to do the interview. I'll be outside if I find out that it's going sideways on you. If it's going south, I'm going to come in. As I remember it, it's probably not accurate, but as I remember it, I was about 3 minutes into it, and he stormed into the office, ran in, slapped his hand on the desk, got in her face, and said, I want my money. She confessed. But I don't know if that's the most appropriate way to treat a coworker. We didn't get anything else. I'd been working on this case for quite some time, and all she confessed to was the money that she had in her pocket. But what we do at Wicklander, Zalowski and Associates and who we are, Doug Wicklander and David Zalowski are polygraph examiners by trade. So the theories that we teach when it comes to the investigative interview, to your suspect interview, they're rooted in the polygraph and what the polygraph examiner does. And we've taken those theories, and Doug Wicklander and Dave Zalowski started their firm in 1982. We've been around 30 years. May 1st will be a 30-year anniversary. But we've taken those theories that they would apply into the investigative interviews that a polygraph examiner would do and brought them into a private sector, into a retail environment. And what we teach is a non-confrontational approach to that accusatory interview or your suspect interview that you have to go through. When you've done an investigation and you know who's responsible, let's sit down and rather than slap the hand on the desk, rather than get in someone's face, treat someone with respect, which is what this is all about. Treating people with dignity and respect the way we would want to be treated. I don't know about the rest of you. If I had made a bad decision, if I had done something foolish, I wouldn't want someone in my face yelling at me. At our firm, we have several people that work within our firm that make us who we are. My background is 25 years in the world of investigations. I've been with WZ now for 12 years. I'm in my 13th year. I started out as a loss prevention security store detective, catching shoplifters. Ended up developing a career. Prior to coming aboard with Wicklander, I was a corporate director of investigations for a worldwide logistics company based in North America, sister company here in the UK. And I've talked to people around the world, a lot of people. But my first Wicklander class, for me personally, was in 1989. And I'd been using the theories that we teach for 20 plus years now. And I strongly believe in what it is that we do and how we approach the investigative interview. Again, from a more personal perspective, rather than, again, being confrontational, the non-confrontational approach. At our firm, people like myself, a law enforcement background, military background, other polygraph examiners, there's people from supply chain and distribution that make our firm who we are, that bring into the training that we provide what it is we do. And we are, in addition to a training firm, which many of you are familiar with, we're actually an investigative firm as well. Every one of us that goes out and does training classes and builds the training courses for your staff or your team, we've done it. We've sat in front of people. We still do it. I oftentimes get asked the question, Chris, when's the last case you worked? In the training courses I've been teaching recently, I talk about an investigation where I was given $40,000 in possible, I don't know, what do we call it? Just a fraud, elements of fraud, expense fraud. 33 years, senior vice president. $40,000, a simple conversation in less than 20 minutes turned into a $500,000 confession. And he didn't lie to me. I got it without him giving me the lies that we saw in the early video. So the whole idea is just that, and that, again, who we are as a firm brings that type of experience into the training. And what we've done is we've partnered up with Cardinal in recent years, over the last 3 years, to provide training and bring that training to the UK. I can say in the States, again, I went through the class in 1989. We certainly have our niche there. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We have a strong reputation throughout North America. And we're starting to build that reputation here in the UK and through other parts of Europe as we're taking WZ UK and turning it into WZ Europe and going into some non-English speaking countries. But the whole idea is, again, to take that approach and make it not only a moral and an ethical, but more importantly for you guys, a legal approach to obtain the truth, get admissions, and get confessions from people in the workplace. And as we've done this and made the partnership here with Cardinal over the last couple of years, in about 3 years, and I'm going to guess, I'll give you estimate numbers here, but we've had about 400 delegates on the courses in the last 3 years or so, with 60 different companies represented. And I can tell you that from my background and what we do, not only in the States, but as we start to do things here through Europe and through the UK, there are several companies recognizing the value and what it is we teach and the training that we can bring to your investigators, to your staff, that are requiring that they've been through WZ to be able to go through and do an investigative interview. Organizations in the States for sure, and even over here, the Sears, Walmart, Loblaw in Canada, Reitman's, Walgreens in the States. I know the TJX and TK companies have done the same. In fact, well, Polo, I can go on and on. In fact, TK here in the UK is one of the first companies to do so, and one of the projects I'm working on with TK right now is taking the training to non-English speaking and actually developing the training courses with translating them into German and into Polish so we can provide training there as well. But that tells you a little bit about who we do, or who we are. Now, I often get asked the question, well, Chris, why your course? Why you rather than a more traditional approach, rather than some of you might be familiar with peace? Why you? What is it that makes your approach unique? Why does it work so well? Why do you think it does? And again, I think it's all about the human side and treating people with respect, being non-confrontational within that conversation. One of the things that we've found in the research that we do, and we do quite a bit of research, not only field research on the interviews, but research in the world of academia, to find out, why do people confess? Why do they tell you when they've done something wrong, when you're dealing with an integrity issue? And what we found through a lot of that research is that, number one, the younger generation right now doesn't deal well with confrontation. They don't have a great respect for authority, the way an older generation, or the way my father taught me how to, deal with authority, et cetera. But in following that model, and again, in understanding changes that we'll see in your younger, associates and employees at the store, is changing the way we want to approach this. And this gives you a little rundown of what we cover in a 2-day course. And in that course, we talk about investigating cases, multiple suspect, no evidence, no witnesses. How many of you, and I would bet every one of you in this room would raise your hand, on a somewhat regular basis, deal with a case where you have some missing money out of the safe, or missing deposit, so, a missing shipment, no evidence, no witnesses, multiple suspects. How many of you deal with cases like that, scenarios like that? And I think most all of us do. It's one of the things that we focus on in our interviewing class is just that. How do you interview to determine who's responsible for that type of issue? When you know who's done it through your course of your investigation, through the course of the interview, how do you get them to elicit the truth? How do you go through the process in a non-confrontational way? And it is about a 2-step process in terms of building credibility and showing understanding. And again, we also address things like dealing with resistance and denials, how to ask questions properly, question formulation to elicit information, and more importantly, to encourage truthfulness, rather than some of the things that we saw in the interviews in the video earlier on encouraging lies. And I got to say, and I've been fortunate enough to work with some great people and spend some time here over in the UK. I've enjoyed all the training that I've been able to do, the people I've had some time to work with, learning a lot about some of the cultural and the legal issues, and what we're doing is adapting our training to be more specific to what it is you do. And one of the things that I try to impress upon people is it's not just for your investigators dealing with issues of fraud. Human resources and the types of issues that they deal with, and the integrity issues, the bullying and harassment cases, et cetera. Pre-employment, doing proper interviews on a pre-employment screen to make sure you're bringing the right people onto the team. Safety, risk management. How about this? Earlier I was watching and listening in on the, was it Criminomics? I think it was, he had called it. And the numbers that were attached to shoplift and shop crime. How would you like to develop an informant when you have one of your boosters in your store who's stealing something from you, but through the process of an interview, turn a shoplift case maybe into an organized crime case and find out that you have people in your store connected to it? Find out where the offense is, how many times they hit your store. How about this? Why do they target your store? How do they defeat the technologies? So the interviews can be applicable to many, many scenarios, right? So that's a little bit about, WZ, who we are, what it is we do. What I've done is, rather than me standing up here and, kind of telling you what we do and thumping my chest a little bit, is I brought a couple, previous delegates from the course with me so that they can share their experiences, not only from the training room itself, but how they've taken that information out to the field, out to their environment, from an individual and personal benefits that they've received, as well well as a more global, organizational benefits that they've found in taking this WZ method into the workplace and into their environment. So I've got Ian and Gary with me. Ian, you want to? Ian will share some information with you on, again, his experiences with WZ.
Good afternoon. As Chris said, my name is Ian Noble. I'm the Divisional Security Manager for Travis Perkins. I look after the north of the country, which is just north of Birmingham, until you fall right off the end in John O'Groats, Southern Ireland and the Isle of Man. I currently have about 550 branches that I look after and a team of investigators. I went on the course about 18 months ago, and after I'd been on the course, I'd done a little video, a practice video, which I'll show you next.
Something has happened. I conduct an investigation. Now, this could be a variety of different methods, including looking in the cupboards to see what we have, looking in the bin to see what wrappers have been put away, and even watching to see what's going on. Now, Nathan, as I said, I have conducted my investigation. It is now complete. And I want to ask you, when was the first time you took chocolate? It wasn't on the first day you were born, was it? No, of course not. But Nathan, when was the last time you took chocolate?
As you can see, I got the confession. One of the reasons why I showed that was that today is Nathan's second birthday. He was born 2 years ago today. Now, I am 350 miles away from home because I want to support Chris, WZ and Cardinal with what they do. It's meant that much to me. In the last couple of years, since I've been on the course, it's been absolutely fantastic, and I wanted to share that with you. Good job he's not a bit older, because I might have got a bit more grief. The wife wasn't too pleased about it, but I'll deal with that when I do get back home again tonight. Now, I think this slide pretty much says it all. When we were told we were going to this course, we sat there with lots of other retailers. We were all talking beforehand, and this was probably the comment that we heard the most. We all thought, typical Americans, coming over here to tell us how to do our job. How many interviews have we done? How many confessions have we had in the past? And here he is, he's going to come over and tell we're doing it all wrong. And he did. He really did. Some of the results we had since we had the training with Chris have been absolutely phenomenal. I, like many others, and probably like you all sitting here today, now I think of it as old school, how we used to interview people. We'd have £50 being taken out the till. We've got some CCT. We'd go and interview them. It'd be like a game of chess. They would lie to us. I would close the door. They would lie to us. I would close the door. They would lie to us. I'd close the door. And eventually back them into a corner till they just burst and they had to say, yes, I took the £50. Great. Result. I'd be singing and dancing, got the confession, job done. I'd say, how much else have you taken? Nothing. It was just £50. It's the first time I've ever done it. How many times have you ever heard that? The next is a very little clip just after here, which I think sums it up. The videotape. I missed the videotape when it first went away, and we had CDs. It didn't have the same effect when you slammed it on the desk, when you couldn't spin it around, when you couldn't play with it, and at the end of the interview they go, oh, what's on the tape? And you go, I don't know, it was already lying here. Videotape had gone. Would never use it again, would never think about it, never miss it, because now I've got WZ, the technique. Just give you an idea of some of the results we've had in the last year since we've been using it. These figures were very, very rare before. Like I say, we'd have a job for £100, £200, you'd get a confession for £100, £200. We still get them jobs for £100, £200, but now, last year, there were 7 cases where the admission came to over £5,000, 7 cases where it was over £10,000, and 1 case over £20,000. We've probably got maybe 1 or 2 of them every year just by pure fluke. We did get a lot of evidence together which would prove they had taken a large amount, but it happens more and more and more now. One of my favourite statements is, everybody in this room, we all change numbers. It's just what numbers do you change? And I say it every time I go into a meeting, what numbers do we change? We all change numbers. And now I feel like I really do change numbers and change it to a positive amount. I cover my salary now. Some years, I probably never. Some years it was more the fear factor. If it wasn't employed, how much would you have lost? But now I cover my salary tenfold. £125 refund fraud. It's about the second or third time that I used the technique. Went into a store, CCTV, £125 refund fraud, assistant manager in the bag, no problem. Went into the store, started interviewing him, used the WZ technique, resulted in, it'd been going on for 3 years. In the last 6 months, he admitted he'd taken £15,000 just in the last 6 months. So imagine how much it was in the 3 years. He told her 2 different ways he was committing refund fraud that we didn't even know about, didn't even know existed, didn't know it was possible. We sent that information to the data analyst. They searched on that and then pulled out more jobs around the rest of the country. There, the refund fraud was happening in the same way. I would never have got that in the past. Another comment that was used a lot at the time when we were on the course, it won't work on the people that we interview. That was always what was said. Yeah, it might work on the Americans, but it won't work on our lot. The Vicky Pollards of this world, and we've got hard people that we would. I've worked in Peckham, I've worked in Beckton, I've worked in Manchester, London, all around the country. I tell you what, this works. It works far better than any other method that we've ever used before in the past. Chris alluded to it before, you don't want them to lie to you. You want them to admit they're a thief. You don't want them to admit they're a liar and a thief. And that's why this is powerful. And it works better on these people because they're used to the way that we interview in the past. They're not used to this method. There's just a couple of slides here. I asked the rest of the team who've went through the course just to give us a quick statement on their feelings. I'm not going to read them through to you. I'll just flick through them. These are some of the comments that they said. So it wasn't just me. Everybody in the field who's really embraced it and has gone through it and has learned from it and has practiced it and has developed it and uses it all get the same results. They all develop the confession far more than they ever did in the past. And we didn't care what people said in the past as long as they confessed. We weren't interested in what they were saying. But now you've got to listen to what they're saying to use that as part of your investigation, to part of the interview. And that's me. Gary's turn now.
Good afternoon. My name's Gary Tattersall. I'm a Regional Loss Prevention Manager with Wilkinsons and an investigator. I've worked for Wilkinsons for about 5 years now, having completed 12 years as a police officer, reaching the rank of a detective sergeant, which is really when I became interested in investigations, particularly the interviewing of people. I was first introduced to Wicklander about 4 years ago when I was sent by my boss to go and review the course to see whether we thought it was a good idea to introduce to the rest of the business. And over the last 4 years, we've had every one of our investigators go through that course. And more recently, I attended back in October, the one-day advanced course. And again, we've started to roll that out to some of our other investigators. Today, I want to talk to you from a slightly different angle than personal experiences. It's about how WZ has affected our business and how well it fits into our business model. And to do that, I just need you to have a quick understanding about our business. As I said, I work for Wilkinsons, and we're still a family-run business. We're still owned by the original Wilkinson family. We have over 368 stores, and we're still growing and continuing to push our brand out nationally. We sell everyday products for your household. That's everything from toothbrushes to toothpaste, your wheelbarrows, your curtains, duvets, etc. And some of those which are both desirable and high value, which is when we need to start thinking about our internal issues. We have 25,000 employees, most of the majority of those being trusted and hard-working. But as we all know, with those sort of numbers of employees, you'll always have an element that will abuse the systems and procedures, and that's where WZ comes into its own. So before I talk about why we use WZ, I want to share with you our business values. I want you to understand how WZ and why WZ works for us. For me, there is no question that the WZ model works. It's really about the model fitting in and working within our core business values. So how does the model help me live the family values? As you can see there, the first one, shaping our future. The WZ model helps me to set a clear vision, direction, and clear expectations when I'm completing an investigation. Pulling together, it's fair, it's consistent and transparent, and it shares best practice. And then showing passion. It definitely inspires and builds confidence in me. And I know for a fact, and that's me as a user, and I know for a fact it inspires and gives confidence to my customers, my retail partners. And being unique, the WZ model challenges the status quo and provides confidence and encourages difficult questions to be answered. And the last one, making it fun. Can we make it fun as loss prevention officers? We're always there delivering bad news. It certainly helps to create a better environment. Within the model, it has a social awareness, and by dealing with offenders, it can help elevate the mood within the store. So who's using the WZ model in our department and why? And how has it affected our department? Sorry, press the right button. Just a very quick bit of background for our department while I go on to why we use WZ. Our department's headed up by Mick Phipps, who some of you will know and heard speaking this morning. Mick's totally transformed the way our department works, introducing new ideas, giving us a better understanding within the typology of loss as an example, and WZ falls into that part. Historically, we always recruited people with a police background, thank goodness, or I wouldn't have had a job. But now, with the implementation of typology of loss and Wicklander, we've been able to increase diversity within our department. We've been able to look more locally within the business and employ some very valuable partners within the business who have come to work for the loss prevention department and gaining their experiences. We've then been able to provide them with the tools to complete investigations by using the WZ model. With practice, anybody can use the model. And as an example, over the last 2 years as a department, we've conducted over 600 investigations using the WZ model. So why Wicklander? It provides quality, enjoyable and professional training. It's delivered in an environment that aids learning. It's non-confrontational, creating a friendly environment to achieve our end goals. It provides the tools and methods to deal with the truth, providing with good evidential evidence for the police to support prosecutions. And I think importantly, as Chris touched on, it's not just for LP. We've actually introduced it to other business partners within our business, through to risk, distribution centres, to help them complete their investigations. And on a personal note, I've also recently used the WZ model outside of an investigation when I was hearing a disciplinary hearing. And at the end of that hearing, I received some great feedback. It was from the union, so it was like receiving feedback from the devil. But they sat me down and said, thank you very much for the way I conducted the hearing. I used the WZ model to give me the structure for that, and it worked really well. And importantly, using that model, we get it right first time. We've seen a reduction in appeals, grievances, which has ended up in a cost reduction in management time, administration time, etc. And to nick someone else's phrase, Steve Jobs said it works, and I couldn't think of anything better to sum up the WZ model. It does just work. It does exactly what we're telling you today. Just lastly from me, just 3 last points. I've got examples and endless examples of interviews where I've gone in with little evidence. I have a suspect. I sit them down. I use the WZ model. The top example there of perfume theft was a chap that had stolen £60 worth of perfume, the manager told me. We sat down, we followed the model, and we had a confession for 15 grand. That's the size of an Arctic lorry for us, that we actually recovered the goods out of his house. It was all piled up in his front room. It was like an Aladdin's cave. I don't believe that we would have got that confession if we hadn't have used the WZ model. Even as a police officer, when we used to put a bar of soap in a sock and beat the confession out, I don't think we would have got to that. And this way is far more ethical. Expenses theft, a very similar example. A manager, this works with cash and stock obviously, a manager who was abusing refund frauds, he was helping himself to charity money. We went in with limited evidence, we sat down, we did the WZ model, and he admitted to £10,000 worth of refund fraud and expenses. So I can stand here and vouch for the model. Where I might be slightly different to most people, it's not about chasing big numbers for me. I like the acknowledgement at the end. Everybody, or the majority of people that I interview, and certainly in those 2 cases, at the end of the interview, both of those people stood up and shook me by the hand and thanked me for the way I dealt with them. And that's why I'm a big supporter of WZ. Thank you for your time.
I love hearing success stories. There's no doubt about that. And I know, you know, seeing faces out here, I know there's a bunch of success stories sitting in the room here today as well. And I want to thank everyone for their support. As we continue to grow WZ UK and turn it into WZ Europe, I want you to know that in addition to everyone that support and all the success stories that I get to hear from people that have been through the course, I want to thank Keith Hudson, and as a manager of operations for WZ Europe and the work that he does. If you guys don't know Keith, if you don't recognize him, we got a great looking picture of Keith up here for you so you can see him. But we do run courses on a regular basis. If you have questions, I certainly will be around to pass out a business card, anything like that. But we run courses on a regular basis. Speaking of success stories, I received an email this morning on a success story of someone who was on a course with me Monday and Tuesday of this week, where they already turned it into a success. So, again, I guess that's all, unless.
So, thank.
We do have, I know as you leave, they're going to have a DVD and a flyer for you that may answer some of the questions that you might have about WZ, what it is we do in some of the training courses, and what we do with the training courses. So,
yeah. Thanks.
Questions?
And can we have a question?
Thank you.